Are you tired of paying thousands of dollars for your Ferrari oil change? Sure you are! Welcome to 2 Car Pros, my name is Ryan, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to change the oil in a 2012 Ferrari 458. This is not too difficult to do. I know some people are a little leery kind of working on a Ferrari, but at the end of the day, they are just cars and they come apart and go back together exactly like a normal car, just more expensive. Just be careful, use your head, and you're going to get through this just fine. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. So this is where the front of our 458 is. We're going to come underneath it. And obviously you don't see an engine in the front, located at the rear. And this is more or less where we are going to be working. The first thing we need to do is work on taking this underbalance piece off so we can have access to our engine. So the first thing we're going to do is take off the rear splitter piece. This is the first thing you need to take off before you can take off the main undercover. And what holds this on is, it looks like 6 4mm Allens and then a clutch of 10mm bolts. So we can just make sure the Allen is fully seated in the fastener. And remove that fairly long fastener and set that aside. With our last Allen removed, we can move on to the 10mm bolts at the front of this piece. Then we can remove the 8 10mm bolts that hold the front of this rear splitter on, and what it's going to want to do is drop like this and then come forward, and that's how we're going to get this guy out of the way. So I've left these two in place just because as soon as I remove the last one of these, the whole thing's going to want to fall down on me. We don't want that to happen. And notice that the middle 2 bolts here are actually shorter than the 6 that flank them. So keep that in mind, short ones in the middle. So once you take this last bolt off, it might want to fall down on you. Typically they like to slide forward before they do that, but sometimes you never know. So we're just going to let that down gently and come forward and down, and we can remove that whole panel and set it aside. So the next thing I'm going to focus on is removing the T30 Torxes that are around basically where the brake duct is going into. You have to remove a couple of these guys. And those are just the T30 Torx. They should fit nice and snug. And notice I'm not using my electric implement. I'm actually using a hand ratchet because these can strip like really easy. So I just want to do these by hand. And typically you just have to break them loose and then they'll come out by fingers like this one is. There we go. Do the other one on the other side as well, and we have one in front. So this Torx is actually different than the one rearward. It's a little bit smaller of a head, so that's a T30 as well. And again, same procedure. There we go. Looks like that. So it is actually a different fastener. So remember where this one goes, and we can do both of those Torx fasteners for each side. So the next thing we can do is remove the 4 Phillips head screws that are located in front of the brake duct on both sides. And there's nothing fancy with this. Just make sure the bit has a nice purchase on the fastener so you don't round them off, because that would be a big bummer. Now there are 4 of them. There's another one just there and one back here, so you can't quite see this one, but trust me, it's there. And then back here as well. Awesome, just do that for both sides. So there are a gaggle of bolts underneath this thing that are 10mm, and we need to remove them all in order to get the valance off. But you might notice my lift is in the way. There's actually a hole and where I have a piece of wood that's supporting it, and we wouldn't be able to get this off while it is on the lift. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of trickery to get it off of here, but it's not that bad. What I'm gonna do is remove all the fasteners except for this one, this one, this one, and this one. So I'm gonna leave 4 fasteners in that I'm gonna take out in a later stage, but all the ones that aren't that, we're gonna go ahead and remove. So the ones we're gonna be removing are these 3. There's a couple here in the corners that we're gonna remove. Basically, remove all the 10mm bolts that aren't. This one, this one, this one, and this one. And then we can worry about removing the undervalance and the last 4 bolts when we have it closer to the ground and we can get the lift arm out of the way. So keep track where you get bolts out from, because I just noticed that this bolt here that came out of this bolt hole is short, and this bolt that I got out of this bolt hole is long. So there's two different sizes I've found so far, so just remember which bolt came out of which hole. So what we're gonna do here is a little bit of a trick. I've set up some beef wood blocks here, and yeah, that's what we're gonna be using to work on this Ferrari here. Sometimes you work with what you got, but you can't take this underbalance piece out with this lift arm in the way. So here's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna lower the car. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and stop. As soon as the lift arm separates from the car and we can get it out of there, which I think we can, you just pull this out and then pull the lift arm out of the way. Now the car can't go anywhere, and we gotta do that for the other side as well. So what I'm gonna do next, now that we're on the floor, is I'm gonna take a box, something sturdy. It doesn't have to be super sturdy, but it's just gonna catch my balance piece for me. I have this plastic tote that works pretty good at this height, as you can see, and that's gonna help me not drop this plastic piece. As you can imagine, it's a Ferrari. I'm sure this plastic balance piece is quite expensive, so let's not break it. So we'll put that in place to hold it for me, and you can see the 4 fasteners I need to remove. You can't see the other ones. You can just see the 2 on the passenger side, but use your imagination. The driver's side is exactly the same. And there we go. We can see that the underbalance piece is now resting on my plastic tote. So now what we need to do is hold up this rear underbalance piece while we remove the tote, and then just gently let it come down to the ground. The brake duct might come with it. That's okay. Just make sure that's fully separated. Those can just come down and off with it. Yeah, there we go. Now we don't just have the thing just flop onto the ground. So with the plastic underbalance removed, we can see the actual jack mounting points. That's these 2 humps here, and we can put our lift back on those. So I'm going to swing my arm back on and over with my wood in its place, so I have the same purchase on it as I did before. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah! Now we have access to our engine. So now what we can do is I'm going to have a helper help me take this thing outside, because I want to hose it off and make sure it's nice. We'll do that later, and I don't want to drag it anywhere. Now this thing I'm going to do is take some compressed air and just blow around the engine compartment, especially where the sump tank is and where the oil filter housing is. And the reason we're doing that is so dirt doesn't get anywhere in our engine. For obvious reasons, you don't want that. Oh yeah, there's a ton. Looks pretty good. Now, to really finish it off, we're going to get a microfiber towel, and we're just going to wipe down surfaces, you know, down below the sump fill, like that, so it looks nice and tidy. There's no dirt or anything. High-performance engines typically have very small tolerances, and dirt can really mess them up. So also get the oil filter housing all around there with your microfiber, because dirt is the enemy here. See all the ickies I just got off of there? So just make sure it's as clean as you can. Yeah, it looks pretty good. That looks a lot cleaner than it was. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab some microfiber towels, and I'm just going to put it around the oil filter housing, just in case it wants to blurp on me when I loosen it, because we don't want to get oil everywhere. We want to keep everything nice and tidy. There you go. Check that out. See, we've made like a little nest for our oil filter housing. So the next thing we're going to do is take a 32mm socket and put it on the oil filter housing. Make sure it's nice and seated on there, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and loosen that. So we want this housing to come up enough. I know it doesn't kind of look like it on camera, but there is a decent gap between the filter housing and the housing itself. No oil came out, but I'm glad I was prepared for it. But you can see me moving it just a teeny bit. And what that does is let air into the engine. Why would we want that? Well, we want the atmospheric air to be able to come into the engine and push oil down out of our engine when we drain it, because this is a dry sump system. You're definitely going to want to do it that way. So now we can start our exciting draining procedure, and what we're going to do is we're going to remove this 22mm bolt first, this 10mm plug second, and this 10mm plug third. So I'll just go ahead and do that. They might be on kind of tight. Yeah, it's on decently tight, but once you break them loose, typically you can just take them off by hand. Not too bad. Actually, I don't even think I need the socket anymore. Yeah, there we go. Perfect, let that drain out. So now we can do this 10mm plug back here. It is an Allen. Sometimes, again, a little tricky, but once you break it loose, it's not too bad. Might be a good idea to wear some eye protection. There we go. And we're gonna do the middle one here. Again, might be a little tricky. And then we can just move that the rest of the way. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to let all three of these just drain and drain and drain and drain. We want to get as much oil as we can out of here. So now what we're going to do is clean all three of our drain plugs. So we can just take our old O-rings, they're just copper O-rings, and just throw them into the trash. They are not reusable. And they're just copper O-rings. They're nothing crazy special. You can get them on Amazon for not a lot of money. What we're going to do is take some carburetor spray or some sort of chemical solvent, and we are just going to clean the you-know-what out of these with a microfiber towel and our solvent. I like to use carburetor spray. And see all the ickies that came off there? Yeah. So we just want to clean these. We want to go to town on these magnets on each and every one of these. There we go. All three of those are super clean and nice. We can take our new copper O-rings and just drop them into place. Just like that. And now these are ready to go back on the car. So now we can replace our plugs. And what I'm going to do is take some carburetor spray and just kind of spray the mating surface and wipe that nice and clean with a microfiber towel. You know, it's still going to be a little drippy on oil, but not too bad. Take one of our plugs, and we're going to reinstall that. Make sure you don't cross-thread it. Make sure it goes in nice and easy. It should go in by hand just like this. No problem. And then what I'm going to do is grab my torque implement and go to 10 foot-pounds. There you go. That's the torque figure I received from my Ferrari guru, Ferrari Steve. So I'm going to go with it, and it felt pretty good. You can do the same treatment for this plug here. That looks nice. And then grab our clean plug. Gently now. Put that in. Very nice. Oh, looks so nice. And then I'm going to grab my torque implement and torque her down. That 10 foot-pounds. There you go. Wiggle her out. Awesome. So we can do the same treatment for just underneath the sump too. And I know it's still dripping out just barely. Trust me, it's fine if it's dripping this much. It doesn't have to be every single drop out of the thing. You just want nearly all of it. Grab some carburetor spray and clean that mating surface really, really well. We don't want anything interfering with our copper washer's ability to seal. Yeah. And then we can just replace that. Again, make sure you're not cross-threading nothing. Make sure it goes on nice and good. Yeah, like that. Oh, mint. And then again, we're going to torque this guy down to 10 foot-pounds. There it is. And because there was some drippies still, we'll clean that off again, just so we don't get what I call false drippies that make you think it's leaking when it's really not. Yeah, check that out. $1,000,000. So now we're topside again with our oil filter housing. We can just go ahead and spin that guy off of there and remove him. Get him out of there. But I will advise you might want to grab a towel to kind of hold it so you don't get any drippies all over your engine and or Ferrari. So the next thing we can do is take a look at our new filter. Here is the actual Ferrari part number. I'm unsure where to get these because, again, I got these from Ferrari Steve. If I find a place to get them online, I'll leave a link down below in the description for you. And we can take that out and check it out. It has our new filter and our new O-ring already there, and another O-ring has already been pre-installed, so it's not like you have to put a new one on. On less exotic vehicles, you have to do that manually, but Ferrari's got you covered, so that's neat. So let's go ahead and just deconstruct this one. So what we're going to do is take the filter material out and set that aside, and then grab a hook tool, or you can use your fingers maybe, and we're just going to remove that green seal and throw it away. So what we're going to do is grab some carburetor spray. We're just going to spray it in that housing and wipe it out, get as clean as you can reasonably get it. It doesn't have to be NASA clean or anything, but you know, you don't want ickies in your Ferrari engine. There we go, pretty good. So once the inside of the housing's been clean, let's clean the outside of the housing. There's no such thing as too clean here, but you know, just up to your discretion. Put that nice and clean, and then I'm going to clean the outside of the housing as well, so this Ferrari engine bay looks nice and snazzy. Yeah, all right. Looks awesome. So we can reassemble our filter into our housing, our new one. You just want to push that on until you hear that sound. Then you know it's not coming off. And then we can grab our new O-ring and just kind of roll it on. You don't want to like stretch it too much because you want it to still retain its elasticity. So I like to just kind of roll it on until it is sitting. That groove, check that out, that looks awesome. So we're gonna take a little dab of our engine oil on the end of our finger, just like that. Doesn't have to be a super scientific amount. And we're gonna wet this O-ring here. You never put an O-ring on dry unless expressly stated otherwise. And then take another dab of oil and lube this O-ring quite liberally. You want this pretty moist with oil because this is what is actually sealing the housing to the engine, and it's absolutely essential that this seal functions. So make sure this is nice and wet with oil like this one is. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a nice clean microfiber and I'm just going to clean the inside of the filter housing here. And I just want to make sure that that mating surface that the O-ring is going to go against is really clean. And I don't want to use any kind of solvent either. I don't really want to spray that down in there. And then make sure that the mating surface for the small O-ring is also pretty darn clean, because remember, it's already lubricated when we lubricated it on the bench, so we don't have to worry about that being too bad. And that looks pretty good. It's nice and clean. We're going to get a nice seal on this O-ring right here. Yeah, that looks really good. So when you're putting the oil filter housing back in, don't remove your towels yet. I'll tell you when to do that. Just make sure that they're not having any kind of overhang. Like mine have zero overhang. That's what you're looking for, because you don't want that to get caught in between the housing and the filter, or excuse me, the engine. So make sure the plastic threads aren't cross-threaded. Baz feels good. Until it is like that, and then we can torque it down. So I've got my 32mm socket loaded up, and I've got my torque wrench set to 25 Newton meters. So carefully now. And there we go, 25 Newton meters. All right, now that we're done with this, we can remove our microfiber towels. Yeah, cool, now we can move on. So the next thing we're gonna do is take off our oil cap, which is also our dipstick. Get that out of the way, and we're gonna place a nice clean funnel. I like this one a lot because the spout's a little bit longer, so it can't wander on me. So here's the oil we're going to be using today. It is Rotella T615W40 full synthetic. And I know what you're thinking. Really? You're going to put diesel engine oil in there? Why, yes, we are. That's a Ferrari Steve tip. Because diesel engine oil has a lot more zinc in it than regular conventional engine oil does. And he says that helps with protecting everything. You want a little bit higher zinc content. And he's been doing Ferraris since before I was born. So I'm going to go ahead and trust him on this one. This is the oil you're going to use. And it takes something like 9.5 quarts, but we're not going to put all that in all at once. What we're going to do is put 6 quarts in and no more. So let's go ahead and do that. And go. And don't be in a hurry, don't be in a rush. You're going to be here a little while and it's a little cumbersome, but just keep at it and I know you'll get it. So now what we can do, now that our 6 quarts are in, no more. Only put 6 in. We can go ahead and remove our funnel, making sure we don't drip on the paint, and replace our cap. Because there's a little bit of a procedure we need to do. So getting the engine oil to circulate properly through the engine so you don't have any problems is a little bit of a procedure. It's not like a regular car where you can just put the amount in and hit go and drive off. That's not the case. So what we need to do, our very first thing, is with our 6 quarts in, we're gonna go ahead and start the engine and let it run for a full 30 seconds and then turn the car back off. Our car's run for 30 seconds, we can move on to our next bit of the oiling procedure. So then we can come back onto the top of our engine, remove our oil cap again, get that guy out of there. Then we're gonna place our funnel once again. Nice. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put 3 more quarter-roonies in there. And the reason we're doing this is so that way, I mean, long story short, you just don't want the air tubes to get overflown with oil. There's a lot to these engines, and they're kind of special on how they're oiled. Long story short, if you put 9.5 quarts in right away, it can airlock the oil sump system and actually have no oil pressure, or very low. It can damage the engine. It's just not good. Just do exactly as I've told you, and you will be fine. So it has 9 quarts in it as soon as I get done dumping this out, but we're not done yet. I know, can you believe it? There's even more to it. So let's go further. So we can remove our funnel once again and replace our cap. And now we're gonna go start the engine. To finish up our oil change, we need the oil level correct, and the way we're going to do that, the way Ferrari Steve's always done, I'm gonna follow his tutelage, is that we're gonna start the engine and let it idle until it gets warm, and then we're gonna wait until the fans come on, the radiator fans come on, and then turn off, and then come on again, and then turn off. And what that's doing is heating up the oil. It's becoming, essentially, it's becoming larger in the system. It's taking up more room, and then once it's nice and hot, then after that, we're going to hold the engine at 2,000 RPM, and it can be a little difficult because it's drive-by-wire. But what essentially we're doing is heating that oil up really hot. Ferrari's really particular about that. Then, once we've held that 2,000 RPM, or as best you can, for about 30 seconds, we're going to turn the engine off immediately, run to the back of the car, and check the oil level, and then we'll continue from there. So I'm going to go ahead and start it. Let it run until it gets nice and hot and turns the fans on and then off 2 times. So the fan just cycled on. This is what it sounds like. It's gonna cool the car back down and turn these fans off, and then they'll kick back on. And then once they turn off for the second time, we're gonna go ahead and hop back in the car, hold the RPMs up to 2K for 30 seconds, and then turn it off and check it under a minute. Run back, run. Oh yeah, we are super good. So it looks like we're a little bit on the low side. It's right about there where my thumb is. So its capacity is 9.5 quarts and only has 9. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that half quart in. Go ahead and add our half quart here. And then we can just check it again, making sure it gets down in there, and bring it back up. It's a little challenging to see, but it's right about at there. So looks like we need a little bit more. We really want this to be about 2/3, a little bit over half. That's our Ferrari Steve tip. One more. There we go. Now we can check it again. Now we can check it once again. All the way down, make sure it plunks, and then take it back out. Oh yeah. So, again, might be a little tricky to see on camera. I'm going to try my best to get it to sheen for you. But we can see, at least in real life, that it's right about there. It's just a skosh over half on our dipstick there, which is absolutely perfect. We can replace our cap, and then I like to orientate it so the word Ferrari is correct. And we're just gonna make sure that our Ferrari oil cap is nice and clean, so it just looks really nice for the customer. So I've already put the lower valance piece back on the exact same way I took it off, but in reverse. The only thing that's a little bit of a trick that you really want to get right is right here there are 3 hoses. 1, 2, 3. And then they just go into little clippies on the bottom of here, and one just kind of sticks out. So you want those to not just be on the back side. They actually have little homes. That's the only thing I want to point out to you when you put that in. And then also for the brake ducts, it's easier to actually put them on as you're putting the lower valance on. There's only 4 screws. It's really simple. So just do that for both sides, and then we can finish putting on our bolts. So when we're putting this undervalance piece on, the 4 bolts that are back here that go here, 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 and here are the longer tight bolt. It actually has a black washer on it, and it's a little bit longer. All the other bolts that go here and here and here and here and all around the front, they use these shorter sort of aluminized bolt. That's what that looks like. So I want to go over that before we put them in. That's the only thing you got to know for right this moment. So I'm going to put in my longer bolts here by hand. Just get them started. They don't need to be tight yet. And I already have the 2 here, so I don't need to put those in. They're actually holding the valance on for me. So I have the 4 black longer ones on, and then I'm just going to go around and put in the bolts that we took off earlier. Helps if you hold the valance up. And you really want to start these by hand, and for the love of goodness, do not cross thread these. So if it's not going in quite right, just take it out and put it back in. It's not that big a deal. You definitely don't want to just send it. And leave them all loose. You don't want to just tighten one down because you might need a little bit of wiggle room. With all of our bolts replaced, now we can kind of start our tightening procedure on this undervalance, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on these corners here with the brake ducts. So the next thing I'm going to do is tighten down the Phillips head screws on our brake ducts. There's not really a torque spec for these. I have my electric screwdriver clutched out really early. Just wrist tight is completely fine. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and tighten our T30 Torx. Awesome. Then we can tighten up this T30 Torx and just do that for both sides. So now we can take our 10mm socket and we're just going to kind of go in an outward spiral around. You don't really want to tighten all the way down on one and then like go right next door to it. You kind of want to move around so everything kind of comes up as evenly as you can get it. And no, I don't have a torque spec, just tight. And then a good way to check and see if you've gotten them all is just try to wiggle the bolt. If you can wiggle it, it's not tight, but I think we got them on. It looks really good. So the next thing we need to do is put our rear diffuser on. And remember, it came off a special way, so we need to put it back on in that same way where we put the back in sort of first and have it slot up like that. Yeah, it looks nice. And then what we can do is line it up so these bolt holes line up. And what we're going to do is take our brass bolts, they're a little bit shorter, and those actually go in these 2 front slots. I know, it's a little weird. That's the way it came apart, so that's why I'm going to put it back together. And I'm just going to leave them finger tight for right now. What I don't want to have happen is for it to fall out the back on me. So it might be a good idea to put one of the 4mm Allens back up into its home. So we'll thread that in. Now it can't fall back on me, so now we can kind of put the rest of the bolts in and we'll tighten them all down once they are all back. So I'm going to take my 4mm Allen and I'm going to do these small bolts first. That way it kind of pulls the back up for me. And I have my electric screwdriver clutched out very, very lightly, so I'm not going to strip these. There we go. And then you just kind of want to go inside, outside, all the way out. Awesome, so these are back in. Now we can do the bolts towards the front of the car. And then again, for the 10mm bolts at the front of this valance piece, just go from the inside out, 10mm. If you're wondering on tightness, just wrist tight. There's no, definitive answer for you. Just like that, it's perfect. So that is how to change the oil in your Ferrari 458. This is pretty much as complicated as it gets for an oil change, and even then, it wasn't that bad. It's not that hard to do. You're gonna be saving literally thousands. The filter's like 50 bucks, the oil's like 80 bucks. You're getting out of this for $130. It is orders of magnitude cheaper than, heaven forbid, taking it to the dealer. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or interesting at all, please consider giving it a like or subscribing. It really helps my channel out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.